let's talk about the one that I have less thoughts on, even though I actually preferred this film over the next film that I'm talking about. And this film is the film Bones and All, which stars Taylor Russell, Timothee Chalamet, and is directed by Luca Guadagnino. Luca Guadagnino recently directed the horror remake in 2019 of Suspiria, and he directed the 2017 sensation Call Me By Your Name, starring Timothee Chalamet and Armie Hammer, which, interestingly enough, about Armie Hammer, this film is about a cannibal. This movie, Bones and All, follows two young cannibal lovers who flee together and take a road trip across 1980s Reagan America. The film is best described as a coming-of-age romantic film and is based on the novel of the same name by Camille DeAngelis. This film stars Taylor Russell as Marin and Timothee Chalamet as Lee. And that description of the film is very accurate. This film is about two young cannibal lovers who flee together and take a road trip across 1980s Reagan America. That's the pitch of the movie. If you're out, if there is no chance of you thinking that premise is good, if you're like, that sounds horrible, and there's nothing that this film can do to impress me, and I'm just kind of offended by this, and I just think it's disgusting, and you're just like, you're bringing to light cannibals, this film's not going to work for you. Just don't go see this film. If you're someone like me who can just accept the film and meet it where it is, just accept the morality that this film is going to hit, this is a really beautiful film. This film is quite literally metaphorical and quite literal at the same times. It's metaphorical about the ideas of lust, desire, a desire to fit in and find community, a hungering desire to find identity, and then it's literally quite literal, and it's a film about people eating other people alive and kind of getting off to it. This film is about people who eat other people. It's gory. It happens on screen in really brutal, upsetting, and unpleasant ways. It's very hard to stomach. One of the people that I saw the movie with, not that I saw the movie with, but who was in my screening, they got sick. They quite literally, they threw up all over themselves. It was pretty nasty. I think they actually got to run out and throw up in the trash can, but it was still pretty nasty. It's upsetting. Like, this film is not easy to watch. It is, if the idea of watching another person eat another person, even fake, like on camera, is upsetting to you, and just like you can't stomach it, you're not going to last in this movie because that happens. I will say that I thought it was pretty handled with artistic integrity. It didn't feel overly gory. It didn't feel exploitative. It just felt like how the story needed to tell that scene in particularly. And what works so well about this movie is Taylor Russell in particular, as Marin. She's a fully realized protagonist. She does not want to live this type of life. Like, you feel for this character because it's not like this character is just someone who kills people and eats them. This is a person who doesn't want this. She feels burdened. Like, she doesn't want this life. She wants to be a normal human being. She does not want to have this desire of flesh. And in that way, it's just, this film allows us to enter into her life. And it does so without judgment. It allows us to just be with this character and empathize and care for this character and kind of fall in love with this character in many ways. And then paired with Timothee Chalamet, their romantic relationship feels real. Like, you feel the genuine bond in this film. You feel the moments of tenderness and just love and just caringness of these two characters. Like, they are two young romantic lovers in this film. And in that way, it is just a beautiful film about self-identity, young love, and desire. And it works so well. Taylor Russell is such an interesting screen presence. Like, every scene, you can't take your eyes off her. She's so beautiful. She's so natural in her performance. You have so much heart and care for this character. Paired with Timothee Chalamet, they have great chemistry together. Just every bit of emotion that this actress is trying to convey, I think it hits pretty incredible. And there's been a lot of talk about this movie, specifically the idea that it's set in 1980s America. Here's what I'll say about that. I think it works really well because it does get the dichotomy of Reagan's ideal of American versus the cannibals. Like, it's such a stark contrast that it really works to just kind of show like how these two characters kind of feel lost, like they don't feel like they belong in this world. And again, this is not a film that condones cannibalism. It ultimately is cannibalism is bad. It allows these characters to exist, and it's just like, okay, this is who these characters are, and we're not going to talk about it anymore. It's not like there's ever a scene where it's like, well, eating people is bad, and you like get this whole educational thing of like the damage that it does. These characters know the damage. They've lived this life, and they know the struggles that come with this life. And that's where the emotional impact comes, because you feel the devastation of the acts that they do. These are not two completely evil characters. In fact, I wouldn't even call them evil. They're very complicated. They have something horrible in the fact that they eat people. They are ultimately murderers, but they're sympathetic. There's something real about these characters. You feel for these characters. I heard some people describe it as natural-born killers. I would call it maybe a little less than that, because I do think the point of natural-born killers is they are psychotic. These are people kind of stricken with something that they don't know how to deal with, and it's the damages of that, and it's the repercussions of this type of lifestyle. And in setting it in the 1980s, I don't think this film would fundamentally work if it was set in 2022. This film does involve them killing people in like random stops and eating them. Like, in 2022, you just have that on camera, or you just capture these people so much quicker. The fact that they can kind of just leave from town to town and jump back, it allows for it to feel more real, essentially. Like I said, in 2022, you'd probably argue that this film feels ridiculous. And like I said, I think what works about this film so well is this film never asks you to get on board with cannibalism. It doesn't sensationalize the acts either, although at times it can make it seem very sexual, especially in its finale. And it's very passionate. It's very passionate, very beautiful filmmaking. And it's the type of risk that Hollywood is kind of not interested in taking anymore. And I'm glad Guadagnino can do this type of film. I think it is a really interesting film. I think it's a very upsetting film. I think it's a very beautiful film. And I have to highly recommend Bones and All. It's one of my favorite films of the year. Mark Rylance comes in this film as the antagonist of this film. Wonderful, deeply upsetting character, deeply upsetting performance. Cannot recommend him as enough. I really hope he gets consideration for Best Supporting Actor, even though I don't think that's realistic. This film is going to be too weird for most mainstream audiences. If I describe this film and you're like, I'm out, this sounds horrible, you're probably not going to like this film. If you like Call Me By Your Name, if you like Suspiria, if you like this, if you can get on board for this type of idea, I think you're going to be pretty blown away by this movie. And ultimately, it's a huge recommendation. 4 out of 4 stars for Bones and All, which ended up being maybe top 3 favorite movies of this year that I've seen so far. I was really charmed by it, and it left me pretty emotionally devastated.